Well, that was terrifying.
There we go. Now, so welcome to High Tech Lowlife. Welcome to the podcast, more specifically. And I have here my guests. They're both developers for a game called Vernal Edge, which is on Kickstarter right now. I think it's about halfway funded. Is that correct?
That's a little over.
We're at 66% right now, and there's about 12 days left.
12 days left. Yes, 12 days as of the recording of this podcast. So, anyways, how are you guys doing today?
Good.
What did you guys do today?
I've been working on updates.
We're putting out. We put out a patch for the demo yesterday, and we're working on putting together an update post and a video, and we've just been busy trying to keep up with the Kickstarter, pretty much.
That's fair. I was playing Destiny. They had an event where they blew up the Almighty or something live.
Oh, nice.
That was pretty cool. Anyways, down to business. Talk about Vernal Edge. So, what games inspired you to create this game in particular?
Oh, there's a
This
lot.
There's an answer we always give, which is Devil May Cry and Kingdom Hearts 2 specifically, but more broadly, just that entire like mid-2000s era of games. Just the PlayStation 2 as a console.
Yeah. Well, there's also some Dust Force in there in relation to character.
Yeah, so there's a
movement.
couple of like mechanical things we picked up from more recent games like that.
Someone was playing the other day and was like, I see that mechanic from Dragon's Dogma, and I was like, oh, someone gets it.
Oh, Dragon's Dogma is awesome.
The cancel.
Yeah.
And yes, it's so awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of really broad. I mean, we're in terms of specific like mechanics. We try not to just lift things, but we do take inspiration from a bunch of different places.
That's good to hear. And yeah, when I played the demo, it definitely screamed Devil May Cry. But do you have any sort of Metroidvania influences? I don't think there was a whole lot of those on the PS2, aside from like 3D Castlevania games.
The structure of the game is very much influenced by a few things.
Yeah. There's a tiny bit of Zelda 2 in that structure.
Yeah, so
God, how often are you going to hear that?
So
yeah.
Obviously there's Metroidvania elements in the game. But the one that we're most looking at in terms of the structure, your sort of like tree of abilities and places to go is something like Hollow Knight, where it's a little more open. It's less like you have to get this power up to get this power up to get this power up. There's a little bit more opens up per power up. So there's you can end up having completely different orders of getting things without even using like crazy sequence breaking stuff. And that more open structure of just this world that keeps expanding, and it's something that's just like very intriguing and fun to play through when you just don't know what's going to be around the corner, and you're like, you get to the end of one path and you realize like, oh, I still haven't like gone up here, like what's up there, you know.
I get it. Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
Open structured games are the good stuff, like Dark Souls and such. I understand.
Yeah, the second thing I was going to mention is Dark Souls 1 has a kind of a similar Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne, I think, and Sekiro partially. I'm thinking where they have these like branching paths that like keep branching and branching, so the world, you almost get this like oval shape of possible places to explore, where during the beginning of the game it starts opening up and opening up, and you get this really satisfying like funneling down of all the paths at the end of the game, where you start to realize how everything connects, and you're like, all right, I just got to explore this last few places, you know.
Yeah, I
Certainly-
understand. I understand.
Exploration has been a big part of every project we've ever wanted to work on.
There's just not enough games that have that true that root feeling of discovery. You know, it's like that Zelda 1 story that where Miyamoto, he was inspired by just like wandering around in the woods. And that's pretty similar to with our mindset, which is just like there's just this childlike wonder to just finding stuff around, you know, as opposed to being funneled through a straight line, or even, in a less linear game,
That's fair.
still being locked off from places. We want to obviously have points where you can't go here without doing something, but there's a lot of games that are very restrictive with that and undermine their own open structure just a little bit. So we really want it to feel like you're exploring and not just going,
Yeah, well said, Alex. I definitely agree. I do think the linearity of games have kind of just like slowly killed it off for me. But I mean, it's good that developers like you and I guess some others are trying to keep that exploration spirit alive.
It's very hard to do. It's a very hard thing to do because there's a lot of considerations that you have to make in terms of like the story and just like trying to get scripted events to line up where you're like, well, the player needs to go back here, or they can go here before they go here. So what happens then? So it's a difficult undertaking, but it's just that core feeling of not knowing what's around the corner is so valuable.
Well said.
We've taken that burden of trying to make everything work in that structure.
All right, so I do have other questions. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to for this first question that I asked.
Yeah,
so
a lot of them.
Yeah, so can you give us a little summary of what the game is about, like the story, like the on-paper story?
Ooh, the on-paper story. Well, Kingdom of Heracot a long time ago. I don't know how it's pronounced actually.
It could be Heracot. You could pronounce it anyway. It doesn't matter. Heracot's fine.
Yeah. A couple decades ago had risen in chunks into the sky mysteriously, and it's sort of been a little bit isolated since then. And Vernal has sent herself there in search of her lost father, and she's on her way to kick his ass because he's never been there. She'd never met him before.
So kind of like revenge, but not really.
Well, it's no comment.
No
Yeah,
comment.
there's more stuff, and stuff's probably gonna change. But
things are.
The premise is these islands are now floating. You're going to them and to take revenge for something that your father did that is yet to be revealed.
All right. So my question is: are you guys full-time developers now, or do you guys still have a daytime job?
Full-time.
We're full-time right now. The Kickstarter is essentially so that we can keep doing that.
Oh, that's great.
So we can work full-time jobs and actually get paid to do them.
Because the game is quite large, so we wouldn't really be able to justify working on it without being able to dedicate our full time to it.
So what sort of hurdles do you have to go through as full-time devs instead of like part-time devs?
Well, it drains money.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like they don't have much to fall back on, I guess. If that's what you mean, it's like it's an odd. It's like a surreal experience sometimes because there's a lot of advantages that come with working on something like this and working from home and everything. But it can also get really overwhelming because you're essentially never really away from it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's just no exit.
Yeah, it seems like a really scary proposition. It's either do or die, and
Honestly, I mean, it's difficult, but I mean that's half the fun for me, I guess. I would rather do something hard than do something boring.
Yeah, we
That's
both
totally
agreed that
fair.
like we'd much rather be making games than like be
Than
sitting
doing
in an
anything
office
else, even
listening
if
to
it
people
means
complain.
it's going to be a real difficult thing for us to do, but the journey is as important as the destination for us here. Like we just like the process of making games, and it would be we both said let's just do it. Let's just it's gonna be hard. There's gonna be things we're scared of. It's gonna be stressful, but at the end of the day, that's just a life I'd much rather have than always wondering like, what if I actually did that?
Yeah, I get it.
I would rather do almost anything than be bored.
Yeah,
So it's a very engaging job to have. It's very active. It's hard, but it's very rewarding.
That's great. That's great. I'm personally not in a position to leave my personal day job, and this YouTube gig is kind of a side gig, so to speak, for me. But
Mhm.
I understand where you guys are coming from. I would love to be able to drop everything to YouTube, provided I had sustenance, so to speak.
I wouldn't really tell anyone to. Everyone's situation is really different. Everyone has their own like. You'll hear a lot of people like, "Oh, you should do this, or you should start here, or you should do it like this." But at the end of the day, do what's right for you. Like whatever you think you're going to be the best off doing.
yeah.
I wouldn't really give anyone advice because we're not. I guess we're not even. It's not like we're old men who've seen it all at this point either. But even if we were, I'd say take all advice as one perspective. Because at the end of the day, what's going to work for people isn't necessarily going to work for you, and vice versa.
Oh yes, absolutely. All right. So the next is why game instead of a or an HBO series based on.
Okay, I missed a little bit of that.
Yeah, you cut out just a bit. If you could
Sorry. So what I said was, why a video game instead of a book series or a critically acclaimed HBO series based on said book?
Dude, we've had so many like fantasies about like what if
What if we did something easy?
No, not that. It's just like what if there was like multimedia Vernal stuff, like what if there's like a cartoon and like a bunch of spin-off games and like a movie or whatever, because you always want to like think about alternate versions of what you're working on, right? Like what if but we just like games. We just like games and we like making games. I don't think
That's
it's really more complicated than that.
That's totally fair. So why pixel art instead of even like drawn like as you mentioned earlier?
Pixel art's extremely modular. It's kind of the best way to put it. It's so much easier to make things like tile and read clearly than it is with other mediums, and it makes recycling assets so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I've also been doing it for 10 years, so
Yeah.
figured I might as
10
well get
years.
some use out of it.
Yeah.
10 years. What have you been doing for the past 10 years, my friend?
Well, making video games. Obviously pixel art. I went to college for BS in game art, so I learned a lot of 3D and all that. So I've had practice with other art forms. But the barrier to entry for making a 3D game was just a little bit too high when we started this project.
Yeah, it was
Like,
just really.
having to learn to like get a character modeled, rigged, textured, and animated successfully before like we could even begin testing out the game's running and jumping. It was just a bit too daunting a prospect when I could just lay down some pixel animations and throw them in a 2D engine and get going.
Yeah, it is a lot more complicated to make a 3D game. We want to transition into that at some point. But with this project, it was really just it was conceived for the medium that it's in. Essentially, it was like it was born out of Matt sort of just making some art and throwing it in Game Maker.
All right, that sounds. And whose is this? I don't want to attribute like a project to a single person, but I assume someone came up with the idea first.
Matt started the project, and I came on a little later, but it's changed a lot and will continue to change a lot. I don't think either one of us really has any. We specialize in different things, but it's both of our project.
That's pretty good. That was a test question, by the way. Just wanted to make sure you weren't going to stab each other's backs.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm interested in that same issue. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next section. Let's talk about the gameplay itself.
Mm.
So, what's your opinion on complicated or difficult to input moves, such as, well, for starters, basically any fighting game input?
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally not a fan.
Not a fan?
Matt and I actually have pretty differing views on this because I play a lot of Devil May Cry, and I used to play Smash Brothers Melee a little bit. I love just like fast, just shit that's hard to do, like really like dexterity challenges in games where you can feel your hands getting better at controlling the game, and the barrier between your mind and the controller is like slowly going more and more away as you practice. And it just feels so good to get good at a game where it's playing at a high level is physically difficult. So I absolutely see the value in that. This is not really. I mean, we try to make the skill ceiling for Vernal Edge as high as we can, but we're not super interested in that type of appeal for this game. We're not going to make it like a Melee or even quite as difficult as something like a Devil May Cry. We want to get like as much depth, so many inputs per second.
I was
I was wondering what happened. You kind of cut out for a bit, Alex.
Oh, well, there he goes again. Well, I don't want to finish his thought for him.
Doesn't really include.
Oh, Alex.
What?
Just repeat everything.
You're cutting out. You're cutting out, dude.
What's the last thing you heard me say?
It's actually kind of hard to say.
It was after you said something like you don't want to be like as difficult as Devil May Cry or something like that.
Okay, let me just restart. So I used to play Melee, and I play a lot of Devil May Cry. I see a lot of value in having a game just be physically difficult for your hands to play. I think it's fun to get better and better on that. It's like playing an instrument, you know? Like, you see yourself getting better, and soon, like, the barrier between your mind and the controller, you know, starts to disappear, and you're able to do all the things that you're thinking, and your hands are moving like a mile a second, and it's just fun. I love that, but that's not really what Vernal Edge is really about. That type of challenge is not really. I mean, obviously, we want to make the skill ceiling as high as possible, I don't think it'll really ever approach that type of challenge. It's just not in the cards for our design philosophy for high-level play.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I guess you'll just have to leave it to the players to discover the high-level tech.
I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll accidentally put in some tech that requires you to do some insane input. But we're, in terms of what we're purposely putting in there, we're trying to keep input relatively simple.
All right, I understand. I can respect that. So the next question is, what separates this from the games that inspired it? What separates it from games that did a similar thing to you guys, like Dust and Elysian Tale? And what makes this game worth looking at in an oversaturated market? Because, I mean, as you know, there's a ton, like truly a ton of games.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of video games, believe me.
We've seen video games. There's a lot of those.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of platformers and the indie scene. It's kind of well known at this point that the 2D platformer is a pretty go-to.
At this point, I mean, in the indie market, it's like nobody even makes quote unquote platformers anymore. Really, I mean, some people do, but like they've now evolved into subgenres at this point because side scrollers are almost like the default because they're just, it's like, imagine if in like the Genesis and Super Nintendo days, people said all side scrollers were one genre. It's the same way with indie games now. It's like half of all indie games. So you can't really say like, so people have come up with terms like, oh, this is like kind of a collectathon platformer, this is like an action platformer. So in the particular subgenre that Vernal Edge has a one leg in, essentially, with the other in the Metroidvania sort of area. There is a few. There's Dust, like you said. There's that game Icy. It's another like side-scrolling.
I actually haven't played that one yet.
It's pretty good. I like it. But there's Aces Wild. That one's really good.
I played that one.
But most of those games have a certain style of movement. They're a little looser usually. We wanted something with like a little bit of a weightier feel, more akin to Devil May Cry. Most of those games you're like crazy, like triple air dashing all over the place, and like But we wanted to bring platforming a little more into it, where the environment, everything's a little more deliberate. It's a little more considered. And we wanted to bring a little bit more depth to it as well, which is what gave rise to the Poison Sun mechanics.
Overall, if you're not quite confident with like action games or like any technical action games, really, like Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Rising, Bayonetta, I'll go down. I don't want to go down the list, but Vernal Edge should also be a lot more approachable.
Definitely more. It's rough because what we wanted to do is action games are often approachable in some sense, but there's this weird duality to their design where getting through the game usually doesn't require you to take part in the most interesting parts of the game. So, as Devil May Cry, for an example, the best part of Devil May Cry by far is crafting combos. You don't have to do that at all to get through the game, and in fact, it's oftentimes not even optimal, right? Like, the best way to play in Devil May Cry is usually just to like spam powerful moves, but its design is torn between that and rewarding you for playing stylishly. And I always looked at that and said, man, I love these games, but they just have this fundamental oddity in their design. And with Vernal Edge, we wanted to take that formula and say, like, what if doing all these different moves, what if everything in your toolkit had a more distinct value proposition?
That's interesting. That's interesting that you put it that way, because I've never actually thought about it that much now that I think about it. And yeah, it does make sense to, for like bosses and stuff. You can't really combo bosses in Devil May Cry, so to speak.
No.
Yeah, and so obviously the best solution is to spam your powerful moves. But yeah, it totally makes sense now, because those games have systems where your combo ranking suffers if you just spam the same move over and over again.
But it ends up being the things required for you to clear the game efficiently are different than the things that the game is like more implicitly telling you that it wants out of you, which we wanted to sort of close that gap and make something more like where which moves to use and when matters a little more to actually getting through the game. So that's where the poise and stun system came from. That's how we've like thought about all of our the knockback. We've had to design it from the perspective of stringing together combos, but also from the perspective of that value proposition of like how easy is this to follow up on versus like how much damage and poise damage it does. So while you're playing the game, you have this spectrum of, however stylish you want to play, but at the same time, the game isn't going to say that let me try and put this, a way to play the game that is inefficient, it's not going to tell you that you did a bad job,
All right.
But it's really hard for me to describe, but I feel like I pretty much got the point across.
Yeah, these are fresh questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should have sent them to you beforehand, but
this is all stuff that's been like talked about and designed, and it's very deliberate in the game. I'd rather maybe let the game speak for itself, but you'll notice if you play it that it's a little more deliberate. There's a lot more explicit incentive to use different moves.
That's fair. And so the next question is there going to be a Bloody Palace mode?
We want there to be, but it depends on how much time we end up having.
Yeah.
Fair. Maybe like a release update, free content update.
We'll see.
I
want to put it. That's all I could say. I can't promise anything more than I want to do it.
All right, and the last question in this section is that we're in a genre where that's basically defined by almost limitless potential in combat. Where do you draw the line? How do you balance? How do you go about balancing this half of the game with the, I guess, exploration half of the game?
Let me think about that for a second, because, well, in one sense, exploration acts as a bit of a pace breaker.
Mm-hmm.
So the two elements do play off of each other.
They exist as sort of a yin and yang, where the contrast is what gives the game that engaging loop of if it was just intense combat after intense combat, it would get pretty tiring, and if there was nothing to do but walk around, then it's it might get a little boring. So
excuse me.
But we wanted to flesh out both of those sides quite a bit. So you get player expressiveness is still like a huge factor in both the platforming and the combat. But the combat generally is a little more demanding. So you get this ebb and flow of how much attention and skill the game expects from you. so you get a little breather between combat zones. So it's been really important for us to make sure that both of the elements mesh well and both of the elements receive a lot of polish. So the answer is just we work really, really hard at it because we don't want any element of the game to feel a little undercooked. Like there's a lot of action games the way they try to pace out things is, they'll have these weird undercooked puzzles or gimmick sections, and we wanted to make a game that never felt like it was compromising on its design to get that effective pacing.
I trust that you guys will be able to nail the balance down. I mean, I wouldn't know much about designing a game, much less, figuring out things, specific aspects of the game. So, I'm just gonna. I trust you to be able to do it. It seems pretty. I've played the demo, and it's you guys have the balance. I wouldn't say more. It just surprised me.
Okay, a little bit of cutout right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you said something.
I don't know if the Discord bot can hear it in the recording.
I mean, maybe we'll see. Now, next question is: your favorite game? These like the games, and yeah, this.
Yeah, I'm just not picking up any of this.
Yeah, could you repeat that?
Hold on, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
That's weird. My signal's cutting out for some reason. Anyways, as I said, what's your favorite sort of like action game in these kinds of action games? You know what I'm talking about. And do you have a good genre name for them?
Like the side-scrolling ones you're talking about?
No, like the 3D action. The Devil May Cries, the God of Wars, the
people who like them generally call them character action games, but there's been a push to call them stylish action games. I'm probably gonna just keep calling it character action, but if for marketing, we'll probably change to whatever we feel like is the more popular term.
Yeah. A couple people and I've been talking about making stylish action a regular term.
I think stylish action sounds like a good descriptor.
I mean, if we're open to genre name convention talks, then I like stylish action just because it a little bit more effectively portrays what's interesting and And granted, most genre names mean nothing, but character action in particular is always like, what does that mean?
I'm weird because I just enjoy it because it's such a bizarre, like, it feels like a weird, like, mistranslation.
Yeah.
But that's very like my aesthetic, which is why I enjoy it. But
yeah, I think I'm personally gonna stick with style game because
I don't. Most people, if they're familiar with the genre, will know what you're talking about. But in terms of marketing, stylish action is probably a little bit better because I think people even not familiar with the term will like kind of understand.
All right. So the next question is your next game. Is it going to be a new game or is it going to be a sequel? Vernal Edge 2.
It's certainly going to be a new game. A
All
sequel's not like out of the question, but I wouldn't want to do it immediately.
All right, that's fair. Best game soundtrack in your opinion?
Oh my god, there's a lot.
Oh, wait.
I definitely remember you raving about the Einhander soundtrack. That's a good one.
Oh, Einhander has an amazing
great soundtrack. I would say
Sword and Sorcery.
No, I have two. Well, 2.5. A Sword and Sorcery spelled with a sworcery, like SW sorcery. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery soundtrack is just fantastic.
I think I've played that game before. Isn't it on mobile? Isn't it like
it's sort of a point and click adventure thing. It's very pretty. It's very interesting and weird game, and I don't know if anyone hasn't played it, just do it because it's super, super worth your time. And the soundtrack is incredible. The other one is the No More Heroes games, all of them. I don't know if I could like, I couldn't pick one as my favorite. Just all of them, the No More Heroes games, 1, 2, and Travis Strikes Again soundtracks are all incredible.
I find myself leaning towards the shmup and like fighting games sort of like soundtrack, so to
There's
speak.
definitely a lot of great.
Like I like the Darius Gaiden soundtrack. That's
heard of
a
that?
real banger right there.
I'm not really a shmup guy, but there's so many great soundtracks in gaming. It's definitely hard to pick.
All right. What about you, Maddie? Besides Einhander, do you have any other personal favorites?
I mean, Kingdom Hearts 2. We both love
Oh,
that game.
that's a great one.
And that soundtrack is
Anything
fantastic.
by was it Yoko Shimomura?
Mhm.
Yeah, fantastic soundtracks. Anything she touches.
As a Final Fantasy 14 player, I really enjoyed the soundtrack to Shadowbringers. I was listening to some of that music for months after it came out.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
there's a lot of great music in Final Fantasy 14. I don't really play it, but there's a lot of really good music.
I've heard it too. I don't really play the game either, but it does have some good tracks.
A lot of great library to pull remixes from. Just all the Final Fantasy games have at least one like fantastic song in them.
Oh man, I gotta confess something, man. I kind of secretly wished that that Final Fantasy 15 took place in the Evilus universe. Like, you know what that is, right?
Everyone,
Yeah.
dude, so many people are like, oh, I want another Evilise game. I want another Evilise game.
Modern Evilise games.
Dude, but what if Final Fantasy 15 took place during them? That would be amazing.
That'd be very interesting. I'd like to see like maybe a different time period of the Evilise universe might be interesting.
Well, that's
All
what
right.
Vagrant Story's for.
Well, I never played Vagrant Story. All I know is that it looks gorgeous. I don't know anything else about the game.
Oh man. So next question is indie games you enjoy.
I could fill an hour with this.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can do it.
I'm trying to like think of like a quick top few. Hollow Knight.
Top 5.
Hollow Knight. Oh man, I'm thinking of a top 5. There's so many. I could definitely put Hollow Knight up there because
Crosscode for me.
I have not played through all of Crosscode, unfortunately.
I played a lot of that during the shoot, what was it called again? The early access, and I haven't touched it since, but I really should.
I remember that was given in early access for a while.
Yeah, I bought it in early access because I looked at it and said, "Oh, this is a real video game." Oh, this movement and action and like it's
Super Meat Boy, absolutely a classic. I loved that game. Braid from around the same time. It's a great puzzle game.
You can't go wrong with Cave Story. I think Cave Story.
Cave Story is like
really kicked off the
huge for both of us. In terms of we met essentially bonded over Cave Story. There's so many really really great ones.
Yeah, it's hard to describe it especially if you a lot of video games.
Library. I'm just like I'm scared to put some on the list because I'm like, what if I see another one that I really remember liking? But there's a ton. Sword and Sorcery we already talked about. That one's definitely up there on my favorites list.
That's great. Good news.
I really enjoyed playing the Horoscope demo yesterday, although that game's not done. So
it's not done, doesn't count. Undertale was a fantastic experience. Just like a really fun. It really like took me back to playing like a classic story-based game where it's just engaging from start to finish.
There's one indie game that's still waiting to come out. It's called Omori. You ever heard of it? Omori. It's like
Omori.
It's an RPG by Omocat, who's a sort of fashion designer.
That's interesting.
I feel like I've heard of this.
Oh wait, hold on. My brain like almost remembered it. It was close. It was close to remembering it.
Yes, I've seen this. I haven't seen any updates on this in a long time.
I feel like I've seen it. I would remember if I saw it.
Yeah, there's very little in the way of updates. I think the last official update came out around the COVID-19 times, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't.
And I haven't heard anything about
I don't know what's up with it.
So, anyways, let's move on to the next question. What would you change about gaming if you were in a sort of position to do so?
I
think I have an answer to this.
MMOs wouldn't suck.
Okay, that's a good one. I think I would definitely want people to be a little bit more open to more different types of design choices. I would want people to sort of look at games a little bit more at face value, because there's an attitude that games should be like just perpetual drip feeds of dopamine, and that any moment in a game that is slow or meant to elicit some emotion other than pure satisfaction is a detriment. And I think that it ends up really harming the medium when so many complaints are like, I don't like this mechanic because it's weird, and it's restrictive, or it feels this way or that way, when a lot of times it's meant to feel this way or that way. So I just kind of wish people would take game design a little bit more at face value, and not sort of expect necessarily for every moment of the game to be just pure entertainment and excitement for you. Because I think a lot more games with a lot more interesting design ideology would get a little more exposure than they do now.
I think one thing I would change is just player empathy towards the creators, because as you know, I think
Yeah.
I don't speak for a lot of the gamers, but I say that I would assume, I presume a lot of the gamers out there just they don't really think about the developers as like people. They think of them as these like monoliths, because I mean that's what they are, right?
The forward facing element of games, of AAA games, is like you just see like the publisher's name at the beginning, right?
Activision.
So it is. I mean, they've made it probably at least partially deliberately difficult to view this as anything more than product, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about, where that perception of games as just product, has ended up kind of harming people's perceptions of games and game developers.
Like, another thing is that, as you know, many people don't really, I guess, aside from like the end credits, many people don't really put their names on a sort of game. You can't really associate people with games unless they're people like...
Yeah, sometimes there's like Kojima game, right? But even then, it's like, all right, well, one guy got credit out of the 1,000 that worked on it. But
that's true. But also a lot of those sort of games where there's people's like names tied to it, they are, I guess, a little more empathetic, a little more favorably. Like, like the sort of like mechanical things that you said, how people like a lot of that is viewed more in a more positive light when there's actual people attached to it instead of just EA Sports, it's in the game or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just my personal opinion, though. So, anyways, let's move on to the next section, the Kickstarter. So backing Kickstarters, they're always a leap of faith, regardless of who or what the product is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen some of the more spectacular Kickstarters, like Mighty Number 9 and such. Do you have any sort of thing to say that would help alleviate your backers particularly?
Faith really is the right word for Kickstarter, because you can only go we can go as far as we can to prove to people that we can make the game, as far as like making part of the game and letting everyone play it. But at the end of the day, it is still placing faith in us to deliver. And obviously it means a lot that people would do that. I think we've done a great job convincing people. But at the end of the day, it is fundamentally a question of faith. I'd say definitely, like, for Kickstarter, do, read as much as you can and, like, see, what the people have done previously, see, like, if there's a demo available, But everything that we can do to promise to our backers that we're going to deliver, we have done on the Kickstarter page and in the demo. So, it's hard. We can only go so far. We can lead the horse to water, so to speak. But I can't force people to do anything, and to do it is to donate to our Kickstarter, something I very much appreciate, because again, it is faith in us.
That's totally fair.
And we do want good faith. We've been very transparent about the development process. We've streamed every Saturday.
We're taking a lot of care to try and, like, we want to build a community of people who are really, like, we want to be very human, we want to be very frank and open with people.
Oh yes, of course.
Partially because we want them to trust us, but mostly just because we would rather be people than just brand,
Oh man, yeah, I understand. I'm in that Discord myself, your Discord,
mm-hmm.
and what they say is true. They give frequent updates, and then sometimes they just come in and talk to the people about Devil May Cry. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, so a lot of our marketing is targeting, like, action game communities, character action, styles action, whatever. So we get a lot of those people. And I'm happy. Chaser Tech recently joined the server. He's a pretty big name in terms of Devil May Cry, which is awesome to me. It's an odd feeling to be recognized like that by people that had sort of inspired you in the past.
Yeah, I understand.
It's a very cool feeling, and I love the entire community so much. It's so much fun to have people around who like you and your game enough to hang out.
Yeah, that is pretty good, and I'll leave the link in the description to join this Discord if any of the viewers want to join such. And my next question is: have you guys backed anything on Kickstarter yourselves?
I've backed a couple games on Kickstarter. You can probably imagine that working on this for 2 years without without receiving any money for it has left the finances a little hard when it comes to donation.
Mm-hmm.
But I've donated to a couple projects. I mean, back when Kickstarter started, I donated to Shovel Knight.
Yeah,
that was to sit in on those design streams.
Yeah. I think that was the first one you donated to.
Mm-hmm. Hollow Knight as well.
Yeah.
Those are some big games, yeah.
Yeah, and also
campaign actually did not do as well as a lot of people might think. That game's success came after release. It's the same thing with Undertale. Both, like, relatively tame Kickstarter campaigns, and then they just, like, explode when they come out.
Yeah, also Nycra and another game that didn't succeed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I've only backed 2 games so far. I think I've backed Bloodstained as well as this game right here. And Bloodstained was a pretty good one because
that was a big one.
Yeah,
I think that was. Has there been a big, like, I'm coming back with a new spiritual successor?
Mighty Number 9. Mighty
Number 9, and then Bloodstained was much later, but I can't think if there's anything after Bloodstained like that.
Ukulele.
Yeah,
That was before Bloodstained, I think.
Wow, those games all came out pretty lukewarm reception. Well, I think Bloodstained.
Well, Bloodstained people like Bloodstained a lot. My
Yeah.
number 9 was not received very well, and Ukulele was not. It was received better than Mighty Number 9, but not super duper well. And then they made another game that people actually really liked.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of controversy regarding the entire, like, the whole situation, Mighty Number 9, and then them having to, like,
That whole thing was like a nightmare.
a lot of community.
It
There was,
would have been nice if after that the game came out and was like universally, like everyone was like, "This is amazing." It would have been great, but
that would have been great, but
came out, people were not super enthused about it. I don't think it's probably not as terrible as most people think. From what I've seen, it looks like pretty good, but
seen a lot
definitely
of
not. It definitely doesn't live up to the hype. And how much of that is the game's fault? I mean, I don't know, but that was the first big thing that like burned a lot of people for Kickstarter.
I think what burned a lot of people was with Mighty Number 9, I guess Bloodstained. There were no in-game screenshots or even in-game like video footage. It was all concept art, and there was this really awesome like 2D concept art that was like hand drawn of Mighty Number 9.
I remember that.
Nothing
and
like
I thought that's what the game was going to look like.
I thought that was what the game was going to look like. Straight up.
I think everybody did, and that like helped contribite to like its.
So it was presented as like a mock-up of what the game was going to look like. Which, I mean, I don't know. I just felt like something that you'd present if it was going to be in that style, and I thought that would be a really cool style to do it in. But
I'm Bloodstained, and the game like that. The Bloodstained 2 much better by far.
I haven't
actually
we've said a couple of times. We've said a couple of times that a lot of 2.5D games just don't look very good.
There's some like weirdness about that, where recently 2.5D games just don't look that good. But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I'll have to say that for someone that actually makes a 2.5.
Yeah. Well, talk to us in like, I don't know, 5 years.
Yeah. Look at Strider. Look at Strider. That's a really good looking.
The Strider reboot from 2014, I think, or 13.
Yeah. I think it's 14. I don't know. I don't
great
care.
Game. Very underrated game.
Fact check me. I'm a voice.
Great looking game. Really
I haven't played it, but I had a couple of IRL college buds that like really raved about the game, and
it is great.
All right,
there's another 2.5D game that looked really good. I can't remember right now.
Klonoa 1.
Oh yeah.
and 2.
Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's like, yeah, that does like count. I was thinking like, oh yeah, that is like
Dragon Ball Fighters. I mean,
Dragon Ball Fighters similarly.
Granddad
Fantasy. I remember that one. Great fighter where you play as all the grandfathers of other fighting game characters.
Yeah, but like, man, imagine if every like, anime game looked like that.
I mean, I think the tech for it is getting a little more like it's they're probably gonna start looking a little better now than they did in like 2003, with when the Naruto game started.
Yeah, that's true. But like, I remember what's his face, Iga, or the guy behind Castlevania, mentioned something about doing this thing, and he never probably would have been if he did like imagine if those 2.5D games actually went so far as to use Arc System Works technology.
I would be very interested in something with that style. That although I feel like it'd be very hard to make a bunch of different environments and enemies and everything for that. So maybe it being limited to fighting games is a time consideration, considering you got your characters, you got however many stages. You don't have to animate like 20 different enemy types and like a full game's worth of environments.
Yeah, you're right.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely I'm always eager to see like different cool stylization for games.
And anyways, and so one more final question. Do you have anything to announce on this podcast? Any juicy bits you've been itching to announce?
Oh, like a special, like an exclusive.
An exclusive.
On Kickstarter for a little bit more than a week as of recording this. So please
Please donate if you can, share if you can. Both of those things will help us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the final stretch here. We're really approaching, like, we got to kick it into high gear to get over that line. So whatever you can do to help, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, do that to these guys. These guys seem like they really deserve like the chance. If you're interested, of course. I actually, a lot of Kickstarters actually become more successful towards the latter end of the campaign. Like the
people who really want to see it really end up pushing for it sometimes. But we, we're not just gonna sit back and like be like, we'll just, people push it. We're not gonna keep fighting, or we're not gonna stop fighting until the last hour of the last day. Even if we do, make it over the goal, we're gonna keep pushing to get it to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's fair. And so, and I believe that concludes the interview. Thank you for tuning in, and please like and subscribe to my channel, and go check out their Kickstarter, which is in the link below. And you can also check out their Discord, which is also in the link below as well. And any more final thoughts, guys?
I think that's it. Thank you for having us.
Black Lives Matter, and have a good day, everybody.
All right. Thank you for joining me. Black Lives Matter, and I'll see you guys sometime later.
Yep.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.